Welcome back to Under Oath. I'm going to give you a topic you are going to love just because I know you. Abby Zverner, I can't even think about it, Zverner, I'm going to say it, Zverner, a first grade teacher in Newport News, Virginia, was shot by her 6-year-old student. Cartman first season shot her. She's looking for $40 million against the New York first grade.
First grade.
She's looking for $40 million against the Newport News Public Schools for negligence. Here's the problem. It's a workers' comp case.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it is. Yeah.
Now, there are so many things I want to eat on this case.
So are we going to talk about a 6-year-old having a handgun? And then
I say.
And the 6-year-old
being able teacher, where's my jukebox?
to get the handgun into class.
Yeah.
Right? And then, listen, $40 million, you're still alive, right? Is she paralyzed?
Yeah, I want my cheesy poos.
Like $40 million seems a little excessive. She gets shot in the knee. I mean, I can't imagine this first grader is that good of a shot. Right?
I went for the headshot.
So did he like wing her and it just hit like a fatty area?
Go to the range a lot.
Is she forever stuck with, I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life because this kid shot me?
Okay. Now you're making me sad.
I don't know why $40 million is the amount. I mean, she's still alive. Her estate wouldn't get $40 million if she was dead.
Now you're saying Mr. Garrison died. It's making me sad.
Yeah.
The issue, I guess.
And the other issue that you brought up is, well, is it workers' comp or is it negligence?
She got shot on the job.
All right. So which of those do you want to start with?
I don't know. Let's start with the gun first.
All right. So how does a 6-year-old get a gun into school? Does the school know about it? That's the big question.
She's claiming they did. How the school knew about the 6-year-old with the gun and how she's still standing there when the kid pulls the gun, I don't know.
Was there some sort of violent history with this? I mean, how do you have a violent history with a first grader in the first place?
How old is the first grader?
They haven't been in school long enough to develop any sort of history.
6 years minus
you're
13.
6 years old?
She's 7 years old.
6, 7 years old.
6, 7 years old. And blazing. I blame it on Grand Theft Auto. It's Grand Theft Auto that got him. You know, if he wasn't playing the Xbox, it wouldn't happen.
Was it a boy? Was it a boy shooter or a girl shooter?
I assume it's a boy shooter.
I assume that too, but I don't know for sure.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
somebody got upset with the Barbie movie and started unloading.
Our producer says it's a boy shooter.
Okay, boy shooter.
If the school knew, so how the school knew about the gun or not kind of affects whether or not it's a workers' comp case in a weird way.
Okay, because you're talking about a level of negligence.
Right. So the trade-off, the theoretical trade-off for employers having workers' comp in the first place is so that employees who are hurt don't have the burden of having to prove that their employer was negligent, because that's hard to prove. You can't necessarily prove that people are negligent, and a lot of times it's a reasonable test, and a jury might decide one way or the other. So rather than having every single employee in all of these states sue their employees trying to prove negligence, they just said, okay, listen, you don't have to prove anything other than the fact that you were working at the time you were hurt.
But that happens anywhere. Somebody falls in their chair.
Right.
I mean, somebody, even when they do something stupid, we've seen cases where two guys are chasing after each other, screwing around and get hurt. Well, and it's still workers' comp.
Well, let me finish the point, because that is why the trade-off comes in. So you don't have to prove that your employer is negligent, right? But you also don't get the type of damages that you would in a regular negligence type of case. Your damages are limited to your medicals and your lost wages, and that's all you're going to get. You don't get pain and suffering if you're suing your employer. Now, there's a very, very narrow exception.
It's it's almost impossible.
There's a very narrow exception, and that is you have to prove that your employer committed basically an intentional act. They knew that you were going to get hurt. That was in Florida, it's virtually certain. In New Jersey, it's probably substantial certainty. But they knew, they had a very good idea that because of what they did, you were going to get hurt. Like, it's inevitable that you were going to get hurt. And our producer just held up the manner in which the school came aware of the gun, and that they were told that he had a gun. So if the school's told a kid has a gun, and you don't immediately go to the kid that allegedly has the gun and search him for the gun, then what else can happen at a school where you're told a first grader has a gun?
I'm wondering who knew. I mean, if I get told, hey, Cartman over here, I hear he's coming to school with a gun.
That's all you need to hear.
You know what?
And then you go find out if he does or not.
Let me look to see whether we're having sloppy joes or not. No, my first priority, Cartman with the gun.
Yeah.
What is going on?
So I think this lady might have an argument that if the school knew about it and they didn't take immediate steps.
But it's not certainty. What if it wasn't real?
They didn't do anything to verify.
Oh, so you're saying the verifying, but you still have the trust that we didn't know it was real.
Yeah, that would be their defense.
The certainty issue is not there.
That would be their defense. Sure. They're going to say, we don't know if the claim was real or not. So we decided to wait till the end of the day and then go talk to the kid and find out, did you have a gun during the course of the day?
Now, for those who are listening, the reason
you don't get to decide whether or not the complaint is real or not. You have to assume, oh, we got a bomb threat, Jeff? Is that what you say? We got a bomb threat. How do we know the bomb threat is
not
real?
absolute certainty.
Right. You're right. It's not absolute
certainty. And the reason why this is very important is the difference between workers' comp and personal injury is workers' comp only pays your medicals and possibly some future medicals. It's clearly not enough to take care of you in your future. So that's why personal injury allows you to be able to be compensated for pain and suffering and things like that. I mean, for example, she had multiple surgeries. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks. You know, she no longer going to be able to teach anymore. There's no way I could ever walk into a classroom and not imagine one of these kids not shooting me. Being shot is such a unguided. When I was in the Army, I was never shot, but I know what it's like to have bullets go around you. I know what it's like for them to go over your head. I've actually seen somebody get killed at a range. I've seen people die in terrible ways. Those are memories I have with me. Now, imagine it was me. That's a game changer. A lot of people never recover. We have people have PTSD for just loud noises, much less getting shot. Well, so we can agree that the issues that this teacher is going to have is going to last her lifetime.
Sure, but that whether or not it's a permanent injury is immaterial to the decision on is it workers' comp or not. If it's not workers' comp, yeah, future injury is very important. If it is workers' comp and her mental ability to cope with that, not going to be considered.
I'm going to disagree with the permanent injury issue because you and I both know the same with jury nullification. There's judge nullification, meaning that judges can change their beliefs based on how they feel and their rulings. And we do know you and I have been dead on with the law. And I think this teacher is going to go in, and I think this judge is going to look at her and go, she's a teacher. She got shot. We know if I rule this way, she's going to get screwed. You know, I'd rather get appealed. I'd rather lose this appeal. You know, who's going to come after me if I lose this appeal? Because this teacher got shot in a classroom.
Well, probably the school administrators, and you don't know where the teachers union falls on this issue. Are they getting behind this teacher who was shot? I would imagine that they would.
Who wouldn't get behind her? Oh, I'm worried about the school system. I mean, the district being mad at me.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of
we had that happen
between administrators in school and being in the union, so you never know.
We had a case involving an issue with that where there was some shiftiness going on dealing with a cheerleader.
Yeah, you're supposed to be here for the students or you're supposed to be here for the teachers, and actually you're advocating something that is not in their best interest at all.
No, we had a terrible case where this cheerleader just fell off the top of a pyramid with people who shouldn't be doing it. They were in a terrible area. I mean, they knew there were holes in the ground that they were doing stuff on. The people who took care of it lied to us in their depositions. I mean, it was painful. And I remember the judge ruling against us on that issue and we felt that there was an issue with the city. We felt that he might be an elected official. He might have had an issue. And, you know, that was tough for us because you want to take care of somebody who suffered, and she had permanent brain injury. And, what do you do? And that's tough because you hope that the judge will follow the law, but at the same time, there are cases where you hope they might not follow it.
Yeah, I think you're getting into a dangerous situation if you're hoping the judge isn't going to follow the law. You can't rely on that. So if you're giving this lady advice, the only way to get past a workers' comp defense is to characterize what the school did as so callous as to equating to a substantial certainty that she's going to get shot. And if you're told, hey, this known kid has a gun today, not that, hey, he has access to one at home or this, that, the other. He has a gun today at school, and you are told that, and you don't do anything about it. Well, every minute, every group of 10 minutes that go by that you don't do anything about it, that risk is going up higher and higher and higher. And the longer you do nothing, the more likely it is that something bad is going to happen. We all agree nothing good could possibly happen from a first grader having a firearm at school, yes?
I'm going to open the door to Craig Nirvana right now.
Craig Nirvana. Well, do tell.
This gun got into this kid's hand somehow. Now, unlike cases where we know criminals will get guns, I can bet to 100% certainty, 99.9999, that he got this from home.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
Or a friend's house.
We know there's a criminal issue in this about parents not securing their weapons. Now, here's my issue. I'm a military veteran. Served 3 years. I fired some of the best weapons the military had to offer. I'm a gun holder. I have a gun in my house. It's locked. But I know there are people who are so irresponsible, they should never have a gun. They should have taken a class. They should have had a background check. They should have all these things. And I know you don't feel the same way.
I don't.
I think the gun I think of the gun like a car. You need to get a license to drive a car because we consider it a dangerous instrumentality. We consider that you can kill somebody, you can hurt some people if you don't understand this. So why don't we have the same rules when it comes to a gun?
This is Craig Nirvana, and I'll tell you why we don't have the same rules. Because having a firearm is a constitutional right. Driving an automobile is not a constitutional right. It is a privilege given to you by whatever state authority is in control of the highways of that state.
Is it absolute?
No right. Even constitutional ones are absolute.
Okay. So why can't a 16-year-old buy a handgun?
You just said it yourself. No right is absolute. We've decided as a society that 16-year-olds are not available. They cannot avail themselves of the rights that adults in this country have.
Why are there some waiting periods then?
There shouldn't be.
But there are.
There are waiting periods.
So we do make exceptions.
We do. I think the exceptions are unconstitutional, but we do make exceptions because we're trying to limit the number of people who use the guns inappropriately.
Okay. So we do have our limitations. So why not have to take a class? Even online.
Because then you're putting your right to have a firearm is now subject to somebody's determination on whether or not you pass the class or not. And so who gets to decide what questions are on the test, right? So maybe one of the questions is, hey, what do you feel about this particular incredibly sensitive social subject right now? And if you answer that incorrectly, oh, well, you're not fit. Oh, wait a minute. You're in that political party? Well, you're not fit to own a firearm because nobody in that political party could possibly be fit to own a firearm. Or wait, what do you believe? Do you actually think the earth is flat or that people didn't land on the moon or that
you think the questions will be political?
So all of these things, all these checkbox things, you can put that on a test, and now the government gets to decide whether or not you're the type of person who can have a firearm over whimsical things.
You and I have concealed weapons permit.
We do.
I do not
Don't
carry.
need them anymore.
I
in
do
Florida.
not,
Yeah,
but we had to get them.
we did.
I do not carry a weapon, never have. But I got it because the company we used to work for.
Why did you get it?
Because the company we worked for suggested it. The security that worked for KEL suggested we do it.
Yeah.
So you, Matt, and I went out and got permits. But we had to go to class. We had to go to a range.
We had to go to the class to get the concealed carry permit.
Yes.
We did not have to go to class to own a firearm.
Okay.
And there's a difference.
Tell me what the difference is.
Because I'm allowed to carry it concealed with me in certain areas where people don't know I have a firearm. That is more dangerous.
What does going to the range have to do with that?
I think you know what? I'm not defending that. I don't think that we should have had to have done that.
But we had to by law.
Yeah.
By federal
It
law
was a stupid law.
at the time.
Stupid law.
Okay. But we do limit it.
We do. But
You know
we
what
shouldn't.
You know what I would like to limit? I would like to limit the amount of guns made.
What would that do?
Well, I think when Smith and Wesson dumps millions of guns into our communities all the time, they know a certain amount is going to get into bad people's hands. And it's just profit because the guns are expensive.
So how would that philosophy change by lowering the number of guns? So if you're saying a certain amount or a certain percentage gets into bad people's hands anyway, then no matter what amount you limit it to, a certain percentage is still going to get in the hands of bad folks.
What about
all you're doing is limiting the number of good people who are going to have access to those weapons by doing that. The same bad people, the same people who don't care about law, the same people who are going to get an illegal firearm are going to get it no matter what law you make. The only people who are not going to get it now, thanks to your new law, is people who do follow the law.
So I got Cartman's parents, who were probably good people, who had no idea or respect for their own gun. That's why this 6-year-old had access and shot up his teacher.
Tragedy. Absolute tragedy.
Not a tragedy. It's a tragedy is something I don't really think about happening. I think Godzilla stormed the city.
A 6-year-old.
No, I think it's a
taking his parents.
I think it's a crime.
I don't know.
I think it's a huge. I think this teacher was a victim of a crime, and the crime started with this kid's parents.
Yeah, maybe if that's where he got it. Yeah, I agree. If the parents have a 6-year-old and they have firearms and they haven't spoken with the 6-year-old about safety, if they haven't taken the firearm and put it in a position where the kid can't get it, then yeah, a criminal act has occurred there. And you're right, the teacher's a victim. I don't know that's where the kid got it.
What if the kid, for example, a lot of people are so stupid, they stick their guns under their mattresses so they can get it real quick. Now,
if you don't have kids, that's not a problem.
Well, we can agree that the majority of people on this planet, at least half, have kids. And you have a kid?
Yeah, I've got several.
Okay. Well, I mean, only one that you're really concerned with.
One's living with me right now. Yeah, the others are grown.
One who's still.
And they all know how to shoot.
6, who's around that age.
Jeff. Well, not the 4-year-old, but the other 2 know how to shoot. They're actually pretty good
Could
at
you imagine Annie Oakley taking your gun and walking around? I mean, that's the fear I have. I mean, I have a child on the autism spectrum. I had to lock up my gun.
Of course.
I couldn't have access. I couldn't get access to it in 30 seconds. It would probably take me a minute and a half.
You've had to take precautions because of your special family circumstances.
But you have 2. You have a 4-year-old.
Yeah,
that's the same thing.
Mine is not readily accessible. You cannot just grab my gun and start firing it. You would have to go through several safety steps to get to it.
Should we make that a law? The safety steps a law
that
you have a gun.
Yeah, it is a law.
It's not a gun.
It's because if you don't secure it away from kids, you are breaking the law. And
you're not required to have locks. You're not required. You're just you have to choose your security system.
Well, sure.
Why don't we say, hey, listen,
if you have an infant that can't walk and you have the gun on the top of the dresser, that's a pretty good safety measure. If you got a 14-year-old and you just have your firearm on the top of the dresser, that's a very bad safety system.
What's wrong with these average locks are like $20, $30. The ones that
the trigger lock?
The trigger locks. What's wrong with making that mandatory? I mean, that does affect your ability to bear arms.
The way to
sure, why not? I can't trust people. I can't trust. I make determinations all the time on what the minimums are. Like, for example, you now have to wear a seatbelt in a car.
Yeah, but there's nothing inherently wrong with telling people, hey, listen, since you are allowed to own firearms anyway, the firearms that you have stored at your home should be stored in a particular way. There's nothing wrong with that in principle.
But we can never pass that law because it's kind of like abortion. It's absolute or it's not absolute, because both sides are looking for anything to get a little more advantage over the other side.
Sure.
And that's the problem we have with guns, is that on both sides of I appreciate it. I think people should have it, but I think it should be safe. So I'm probably in the exact middle of the road when it comes to gun control. But I can understand how people don't want to give away even an inch of it, because they know if I give an inch, they take a mile.
It's happened all through history. Yeah.
I
You
know.
give an inch, they take a mile.
But we have to be responsible somehow.
What happened in World War II? What happened with the Jewish population? World War II. They confiscated all their firearms. It's a first step.
No, what happened in World War II is you had a person who figured out how to blame a certain group of people for the ills of his whole country, why his whole country was broke. And we've discovered even in today's
I'm
day,
talking about gun
quick it
control
is.
specifically.
It wasn't just gun control. They lost their possessions. They lost their voting
I understand,
rights.
but
Jews had everything taken away from them. Guns weren't just one part of it.
Guns were the first part.
And how tough would it have
Guns were
been
the
for the
first
government
part.
to overwhelm the minority, even if they had guns?
If they had stood up at the beginning, it might have been something that changed the course of history.
They lost property first. It wouldn't have done
They
anything.
lost their
They
firearms
everything. They
first.
lost voting. They lost everything. But the point I'm saying is that we have to somehow figure out how to meet in the middle on something, or a 6-year-old's going to walk into
What
every
happened
school.
if this kid took his parents' gun, they didn't secure it? We have figured it out.
So this kid goes
That's
to jail.
illegal.
So they go to jail. They go to jail for 5
People who
years.
do illegal things go to jail. Yeah,
What do you think
that's
the
what we
penalty
do.
on the parent's going to be? It's probably a 3rd-degree felony, punishable by a maximum 5 years.
Yeah.
It's not a 1st-degree felony.
No.
It's not a 2nd-degree felony. It's going to be a 3rd-degree felony at best. And since they haven't been charged before, most likely they're going to work out some kind of probation.
Well, that's
Depending on how
you're
big
talking
the
about
city
the
is.
criminal justice system. Now,
Exactly.
You're not talking about whether or not laws are passed to protect people. Laws are passed to protect people. People follow them or they don't follow them. When they don't follow them, then it gets into the criminal justice system, and then you have to resolve that somehow. That is a separate issue from whether or not there's a law in the first place.
Well, whether we like it or not, we can all agree Cartman should not have had a gun.